Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm planning to upload a subscriber story compilation soon, so if you have any stories you want me to read, send them to my email. Number 1. We had a school in a town that has between 5,000 to 6,000 people in it. We had 78 participants on our football team though. Our school has one of the creepiest basements and classes were tough, unless you are genius. There were 8 classrooms down there, but 1 bathroom. There are no speakers in the bathrooms. I had a great day at this school until September 23rd, 2017. It was a boring day of school. Boring 5th period junior math, boring teacher, boring test. I was done with my test, so I texted my best friend Dennis to meet me in the bathroom. I asked my teacher if I could go to the bathroom and she said yes. So I went to the bathroom, but Dennis beat me to it. I texted Dallas and said, "I'm in the bathroom, want to join?" He texted back saying, "Stop texting me, I don't want to get in trouble." We watched season 3 of Rick and Morty in the bathroom, until I got a text from my kind of friend, Dallas. He said, "The school was on lockdown. If you die, I am not coming to your funeral." Me and Dennis had the school to ourselves. We watched Rick and Morty until Dennis asked me to get him some snacks. So I went up to know something wasn't right. The lights in the basement were off. They were never off in school lockdown drills. I just continued anyway, because I don't get scared very often. I noticed all the doors were shut. Even Miss Newton's doors were shut, and she barely shut them. I went up to the vending machines near the office. I got Dennis a Diet Pepsi and some Doritos. I was about to go back downstairs when I heard something. I heard a man screaming at the top of his lungs, screaming gibberish. All I heard was kill and magnum. I saw the man banging his head on the lockers. I was about to ask if he was all right, but I saw a 44 magnum in his pocket. Then he saw me. I ran downstairs as fast as I could. I met Dennis in the bathroom after I turned off the bathroom lights. He asked what was going on, but I told him to shut up. I heard a man walk in the bathroom. Dennis tried to control his breathing, but it was hard for him too. We heard heavy breathing from outside the stall. It felt like forever. Then I heard my phone ding. That was when I knew we were going to be 2 dead men. He started screaming, and that was when I whispered, "Go, go." Dennis made it out of the bathroom okay, but I got to hear a gunshot heading my way. Luckily, it missed me. We headed to Miss Angel's class. On our way, Dennis sprained his ankle running towards the classroom. Miss Angel let us in right away. I knew she would because she liked me for some reason. We got in the classroom and I wanted to check the text. It was from Dallas. It said, "Check in to see if you're still alive." We saw the whole class against the wall except for someone I knew. Dallas was sitting at his desk, like he didn't care. He looked ready to beat anyone in this classroom. I saw the man from the bathrooms, banging on the door, yelling, "Open up!" For what felt like an eternity. It was like sitting through Teen Titans Go with my annoying 8-year-old brother. After a while, he left. For 2 minutes, we waited. The intercom came on and explained the situation. The man escaped from a mental hospital nearby the school. He went in the school and attacked the woman at the front desk. There are rumors saying that he is still in the school waiting for someone. Others say he is hiding in locker 381 because it hasn't been used. Damn kids. I would like to say that he is getting the mental help he needs. Every time I go to football practice, I start to think about that day. I am glad that nobody except the woman in the front desk got hurt. Dennis' ankle healed in 8 days, which is surprising. Dallas was being the man he needed to be. Other than that, I guarantee this school has never been the same. Number 2. I am currently a high school student, and I have an interesting story to tell about my last school. There's not much to say about my old middle school, except that it was a good school. We scored in the top 100 public schools of the country. But other than that, we were a standard school. After school clubs to attend, weekly tests to worry over. Nothing really separated us from the other thousands of middle schools. I honestly don't remember much about the school itself, other than my hilarious friends. I would completely forget about that place and move on with my life, if it weren't for this one memory. I was in 7th grade. It was April. My fellow students and I were already going crazy for the upcoming summer break. Finding it hard to focus on the math lesson at hand, I chose to doodle some monsters. I'm obsessed with kaiju. The class was mostly quiet, not out of respect and interest, but of boredom. Suddenly, as clear as ever, a familiar ding comes over the speaker. This particular sound only plays when someone in the front office is about to make an announcement. Now, hearing this sound in the middle of the class wasn't out of the ordinary. I expected it to be the usual. A white van is blocking the parking lot exit, please move it, or John Smith, please come collect your backpack from the office. I knew it wasn't a fire drill or weather drill, because the alarms would be going off. What I never expected was the principal's voice saying, "Student and faculty, we are entering a lockdown. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Please follow the correct procedures." During any given drill, the class would be chatting away, despite the pleas of the teachers. Not today. It was deathly quiet. For those of you who don't know, a lockdown means that there is a dangerous person near or inside the school. The only other time I have experienced a lockdown, there had been gunshots, head right outside the building. Needless to say, most of us were scared out of the shorts, which was never more apparent that it was in those few first silent seconds. The teacher rushed to the door, locked and secured it, covered the window with a sheet of thick paper, and started herding us students into the correct position. After moving to the corner of the classroom, farthest from the door, and assuming what I call the armadillo position, sitting down, wrapping your arms around your bent knees, and putting your head down, the class remained just as silent as ever. The hallways, however, did not. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't a gunshot. It was the most otherworldly amalgamation of the two that you could ever dream up. A sudden assault of sound, as if you have started a deafeningly loud audio file from the middle instead of the beginning. And for a second, I thought it was a gunshot, until I realized that it was vocal. Something living was making that sound with its mouth. It lasted half an hour in my ears, even though in reality it was probably only a few seconds. I am not sure what to believe regarding this incident anymore. The merciful silence finally arrived. I caught whimpers and sobs from my fellow classmates. I was mortified to the point where I couldn't even scream. I heard footsteps out in the hall. They weren't running. They were slow, soft, and careful steps, stalking up and down the hallway. This went on for about a minute, but I felt like it was sitting there for days. And so, those of us who weren't keeping our eyes shut tight were staring at the gap under the door, watching a shadow pass by it occasionally, which is why none of us saw whatever knocked on the window behind us. In unison, every head turned backwards at a speed that should have broken our necks. No one was standing at the window. Instead, there was something even worse. Nothing. There was no window. The room was open, vulnerable, helpless. Crying broke out from more than one student. Most just gasped, too horrified to move. Just as I had convinced myself that something was about to come crawling into the classroom, our savior came in the form of the bell. Our principal's voice came over the speaker system. Students and faculty, the situation has been dealt with. Please return to your normal schedules. Teachers, you will receive an email containing details shortly. Our teacher explained that she needed to report the window's disappearance, but that she didn't feel safe leaving us alone in this room. We formed a line, and she led us down the hall to the cafeteria. There's always a faculty member there, either preparing food or mopping the floors. We sat at the tables, almost silently, discussing what had happened. Our teacher left to report the window incident to the principal. 30 minutes later, the vice principal's voice came over the speakers. He explained that there was an emergency, that all students would need to leave the school immediately, and that all of our parents had been contacted. Confused, we all gradually made our way outside the building for the early dismissal. We later found out that our principal had been dead for 30 minutes before he first came on those speakers. We never learned how he died. There are rumors that his office was found soaked from floor to ceiling with water, but I doubt there's any truth to that. We never found out what happened to the window. There were no other classrooms missing windows. There was never any explanation offered to us about the sound. The school was closed for over a month. The story was a big deal in our local news, but I don't think it ever gained much publicity or recognition elsewhere. Over time, the incident faded away, and we learned to avoid talking about it. Well, that's my clearest memory from middle school. Has anyone else experienced anything similar to this? I'd really like to know that I am not alone here. Even my school friends have started to pretend like it never happened. Number 3. Last year, during the whole killer clown craze, a few clowns on Twitter threatened to come to our school at 11 a.m. and kill us. The school picked up on this and sent out emails to parents and planned a lockdown at 10:30. Sitting in history class, I hear the familiar sound of the lockdown alarm. The teacher rushing to the windows and doors, locking and closing them. To be honest, I wasn't that worried. I thought that it was just another blank threat online, and nothing would happen, and my day would go back to normal. But there is still an excitement to a lockdown. After 40 minutes of silence, sitting on the cold floor in the corner of the room, the emergency green flashing light turned off, and the air conditioning slowly fell silent and the hallway lights switched off. The school had cut the power. Why? At this point, me and my classmates were staring at each other. We all knew that something real was going on. After 10 minutes or so, we could all hear a faint banging noise from down the corridor, shortly followed by heavy and fast footsteps. Someone was running down the hallway. They started banging on the lockers and screamed, "I'll kill you all, just die." At this point, a few girls started quietly crying. Then, the most terrifying thing ever happened. One of the men, dressed as a clown, ran up to my class door, banging and screaming. Multiple people were crying now. One of my friends whispered to me, "We're all going to die." I started crying too. The man swiftly moved away from our door, and his screams slowly faded down the corridor. After another 2 hours, the principal came on the loudspeaker, surprisingly explaining everything. He said that just after 11, 2 men walked into the school, one holding a kitchen knife and a camera. They ran around the school, threatening to kill students, and once police came into the school, only caught one. No one was hurt. The school got over 20 buses to take the younger kids home, and the kids 9th grade and over, like me, were told to walk home in groups and call the cops if we saw anything suspicious. I had a hard week at school, thinking that the second man would return with a gun or something, but nothing happened. This, nonetheless, will be scarred into my mind forever. The second one, as far as I know, has not yet been caught, but at this point, I feel like they are not looking for him, as it's been over a year. But the thought of him still planning an attack on the school has made me a lot more cautious when walking to school. Since then, the school has hired a few on-campus police officers and have installed some auto-locking features on doors and windows when the lockdown alarm goes off. This had made me feel a little bit better in school, but this just isn't something that you can forget about. It stays around forever. Number 4. I remember this day like yesterday, and although I wasn't there, it feels like I was. It traumatizes me to this day. Here's some context. This happened when I was 16. I'm 20 now. I was that type of kid that didn't really care about my education. I was typically tardy and absent. It was a Sunday night, and I was debating whether or not I wanted to go to school the next day. I ended up coming to this consensus with myself that I would go. It was a Monday, and we all hate Mondays, but I would go just to get it out of the way. However, that Monday morning, I woke up with a nasty headache and didn't feel like getting out of bed. I told my parents how I felt, and they said that I could stay home, but I would have to go the next day. So that morning, I stayed in bed, trying to get some rest. I ended up taking a couple of aspirins to ease the terrible headache. At about 9:15, I get this text from my friend. We're super close and had about 3 classes together. He messaged me saying, "Bro, you'll never believe what happened. We're in a lockdown right now. Apparently, someone was seen with a gun on campus." I replied with a, "Holy shit, that's insane. Do they know who it is?" He hit me back with, "Nah, not yet. Everyone here is going crazy though. They're telling us not to panic, but there's a psycho with a gun over here." "Well, keep me posted then," I answered. I headed back to bed, but couldn't sleep. Thinking about that situation had me on edge. I finally passed out and woke up to the vibration of my phone. I read it and my blood ran cold. Holy shit, man. Some classrooms got shot up and some people are seriously hurt. I haven't heard who specifically yet, but fuck. And the guy who did it, holy fuck, you won't believe it. I replied, "Damn, who did it? Which classes did they shoot?" I remember shaking uncontrollably as I read the messages. "Mr. fucking Tucker did it, and holy fuck, the 8 classes were hit. Apparently some kids died. Don't you have classes over there? Shit, I'm losing my mind, man." I was so confused. Mr. Tucker? The teacher that was fired the previous week. I then received the next message. The cops were in the shootout with Tucker. He shot some cops too. He's dead now. Well, apparently, a couple weekends ago, a student saw Mr. Tucker dealing drugs and took a video of it. The student showed the principal the next week and he was fired. I never had Mr. Tucker, but he seemed like a laid-back guy and he never appeared to be drugged up. He had a breakdown when he was told he was fired and left angry. I turned on the news to see this incident being the highlight. A helicopter cam capturing the crime scene. They didn't announce who was injured, who was dead. They evacuated shortly after and the school was closed for several weeks after. I remember 2 days had passed before they announced the victims. As I saw all they were announcing, I started tearing up. I started shaking uncontrollably. I felt so sad for the kids and their families. I noticed some of the victims were kids in the same class I had. Geometry second period. I came to the realization that I could have been there. I could have died that day. If it wasn't for the headache, I could have shared the same fate as my classmates. God rest their souls. To this day, that event makes me appreciate life a little more. It's terrifying. Number 5. If you were in school anytime from the 1990s onwards, the chances that you have at least experienced a lockdown drill are extremely high. Maybe even an actual lockdown. Obviously. Not all of them end in tragedies. Schools can go into lockdown because of a crime committed nearby, or maybe because some parent forgot to wear the visitor badge, or for any myriad of reasons, most of which don't have much to do with an actual legitimate threat to students. But better safe than sorry, right? I went to school in a post-Columbine world. Lockdowns were always taken very seriously, despite the fact that we lived in a fairly rural area where most of people knew each other. They were regular petitions to allow teachers to carry guns in school. Who knew how long it might take the police to arrive if something were ever to happen? But I'm obviously not on the side of Reddit to debate gun control. So, I'll get to the point. Most lockdowns are drills. I'm going to tell you about one that was not. I've always been a pretty nervous, paranoid person. For example, throughout middle and high school, I despised being in the cafeteria because I always seemed to get stuck sitting in some corner nowhere near an exit. It made me anxious, realizing just how much distance I'd have to cross to get out, even if something as innocent as a food fight broke out. In upstairs classrooms, occasionally, I'd glance out of windows and ponder where or not the drop might kill me, or if I'd make it out with just a broken arm or leg. In downstairs classrooms, I tended to sit near windows unless forced to sit somewhere else. But like most routines, after enough repetition, you can get used to almost everything. If you work in a school, you probably know this like the back of your hand. In the event of a lockdown, teachers are supposed to lock the door, turn out the lights, and herd the students into a part of a room that cannot be seen from the window panel in the door. This always seemed a bit ridiculous to me. I once had an English class in a room where the only spot that you could not see people from the door was ironically right beside the door. The idea of us all just lining up there while someone jiggled the knob outside sounded horrifying. However, my one major concern was always what would happen if I were caught in one of these drills outside the classroom. Was I supposed to run and back on the nearest door, hide in the closet, run outside? Privately, through my secondary school years, I always figured that if it came down to it, if I were near an exit and it seemed like the real deal, I'd take my chances running outside. Better out than in. Teachers never really told us during drills whether they were drills or not, but someone always knew. There was always one kid whose mom was a secretary who would whisper to everyone else that it wasn't real, and that we would be having a fire drill 6th period tomorrow too. They have a special code for it. It's real. A girl named Kelly once informed our entire algebra class, ignoring the teacher's glower. If they say lockdown 3 times, it's a drill. 4 times, it's real. We all snickered, but what she said lingered in the back of my mind. I always counted, always waiting for that 4th time. It never happened, of course. 11th grade swung around, now officially an upperclassman. I let a certain confidence seep into my walk. I was 16. Next year, I'd graduate. I was going to college. I practically owned this dump. I'd see everyone I hated working at McDonald's. You know, the usual 16-year-old spiel. I no longer left the need to rush into 1st period as if I were being pursued by wolves. Instead, I lingered in the hallway with other relaxed juniors and seniors, made fun of confused freshmen, and actually made eye contact with teachers. This newfound skip in my step was led to me cutting the 1st period bell very close as I wiped at my shirt with a wet paper towel in the bathroom. Someone had tripped on the bus and gotten what I prayed was iced coffee on it. The stain did not look like it was coming out, and I hadn't brought a jacket. I groaned, balled up the paper towel, and chucked it at the garbage. I missed. As I knelt down to pick it up, through the thick bathroom walls, I heard the distant crackle of the loudspeaker. Were they starting morning announcements earlier this year? Maybe. Maybe someone had parked in a teacher's spot. Again. Lockdown, 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 lockdown. I was more caught off guard that it sounded like a secretary was making the announcement than anything else. Only after a moment or two did it sink in. This wasn't a drill. I stood there, completely motionless, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do. Finally, I lunged towards the door and to yank it open, peering out into the hall. Every door was shut. It was on the 2nd floor. I thought I heard distant yelling from below. My panic began to settle into a slow, cold fear that pulled in the pit of my stomach and spread down my legs. I darted back into the bathroom, trying to rationalize things to myself. Maybe I'd misheard it and it was just a drill. I tried to remember how the woman on the loudspeaker had sounded. Had she been frightened? Forced calm? I didn't know. The not knowing was the worst part. The police had to be on their way if it was real, I assured myself. So long as I stayed put, everything would be fine. What potential school shooter was going to check the bathroom? That said, I ran to the last stall, the one for people with wheelchairs, and scrambled up on the toilet. Should I lock the stall door? No, there was no point. If they did come in, it'd be obvious someone was in there then. What if they somehow saw me through the small space in the door? Could I somehow wrinkle on the ground from the one stall to the next, evading them? By this point, I was slightly hysterical, but I knew in the back of my mind, like you always know in these situations, if they did come in here, I would probably die. Ridiculously enough, I began preparing my last lines. What I would say, should I plead with them? What if it was someone I knew? Maybe I could talk them down, but I couldn't even convince myself. Never mind, someone already homicidal. Should I try to be the hero and go for their gun? Right, and get shot in the face. Perhaps I could stall them. Stall them. I started to laugh. I didn't know why. I was shaking, crouching on my grimy public high school toilet seat, literally laughing about potty humor. My manic chuckles faded into harsh breathing and I concentrated on my knees. I told myself I won't look up, no matter what. I thought I heard a loud noise from down the hall and flinched, although I had no idea what it had been. I tried to still my breathing and only succeeded in feeling faint. And then I heard it. Footsteps. I was sure of it. Maybe it was a cop, I told myself weakly. The footsteps drew nearer, echoing hollowing the tiled floor of the school. I hadn't been raised to be particularly religious. Right then and there, I started to make bargains. I didn't care if I got shot, so long as it didn't kill me, or paralyze me actually. That might be worse. I just wanted to go home. If whoever was in charge of this shit just made sure I got home, I'd do whatever the hell they said to do for the rest of my life. Maybe they didn't have a gun. Maybe it was a knife. Maybe I could get out of this with a few nasty scars and a story. The door opened and I went blank. I'm not sure how to describe it. I was there and yet not there at all. I felt completely removed from the entire event. I was there in the stall, yeah, but I also wasn't. Like maybe it didn't really matter that much either way. Like I was beyond all of it. For a fleeting second, I wondered if I'd collapsed and died of fright. I knew they were there. I heard them. The first door swung open with a groan, as did the second. I tried to close my eyes and found I couldn't. My eyelids refused to cooperate. Third stall. I was convinced I could hear them breathing. I wondered what they were thinking. Were they excited? Could they hear me breathing? God, I thought, don't let it be someone I know. Fourth stall. The loudspeakers crackled on. The lockdown is now completed. Students and staff, thank you for your cooperation. I heard them pause, and I heard them leave the bathroom, with the door swinging quietly shut behind them. I didn't leave that stall for another 5 minutes. My first period teacher was very annoyed. I didn't really care. I told him what had happened. He called the vice principal down. I told her what had happened. She seemed skeptical. I never heard any more about it. There was no evidence of anyone having gone in that bathroom during the lockdown aside from what I claimed. But someone had been in there with me, and they'd been so close to finding me. Of that, I was certain. It hadn't been a drill. Hello there, and thank you so much for listening. If you have any stories that you want me to read, send them to my email. Don't forget to like and comment, and also subscribe if you like my videos and want to see more. Take care, and I will see you all in my next video.